One of the greatest hacks for being an ambitious, hard-driving entrepreneur is, and that's why Kylie Jenner is nothing short of brilliant.
Harley Finkelstein
is the president of Shopify, one of the largest e-commerce platforms.
Worth over $60 billion. He's helped scale brands worldwide.
And he's now on a mission to help you start your own business.
About a month into college, I got a call from my mom and said, Dad's been arrested and he's going to jail. College is over. And I was shifted into this survival mode. I had no choice. I think it's a very powerful driver. I met Toby around that time. The initial idea had lots of other competitors. This was not this massive novel thing. We just did it better. And that was how Shopify was born. There's a perception that entrepreneurship is very expensive. That's not true. It's less than a couple Starbucks coffees to go start a business today. There are still far too many people that work at a job they absolutely hate because they think they have no choice. No one had this massive 80-page business plan and then got started. That's not how businesses are created. They're created based on this nugget of an idea and they're explored and you get curious about it and you try this other stuff. And that's how you build companies that change the world. I wake up every morning encouraging more entrepreneurship, creating tools that help entrepreneurs start, scale, and build faster. That drives me to keep building and keep growing. The stores that we are most proud of are the homegrown success stories that grew to be multi-billion-dollar businesses.
If I give you $3 million, who would you invest it in?
I would definitely put one of those millions of dollars into the hands of a creator who's... The second one I think would be... The third one would be someone who...
Oh, really?
Yeah, those are the types of people that I would back.
Would you like to go for dinner with me and my guests here on The Diary of a CEO? We are holding dinner parties all around the world over the coming months, and our subscribers on this YouTube channel are invited. We're inviting 20 subscribers to every dinner. So if you'd like to come for dinner with me and my guests here on The Diary of a CEO, I have a favor to ask you. All you've got to do is hit the subscribe button, and I hope to see you at dinner somewhere around the world very soon. Harley, in your own words, who are you, what do you do, and what mission are you on?
I've always self-identified as an entrepreneur, full stop. That's kind of the tool that I use to solve every problem in my life, and to have fun is always through the lens of entrepreneurship. What do I do? I think technically I'm the president of Shopify, but I view my role as being the chief storyteller. How can I get the world to know that Shopify is the entrepreneurship company and invite more people to participate in that? The mission that I'm on, this is going to sound really repetitive now, but is I want more people to try their hand at this thing that I call business creation or entrepreneurship. And I don't think right now most people consider entrepreneurship as a thing that they can do to self-actualize.
Well, why does it matter if more people become entrepreneurs?
I think the world is far more colorful. And I think humans are far more interesting when they commercialize their hobby, for example. I think there's still far too many people that work at a job they absolutely hate. In fact, I would say that they loathe because they think they have no choice. And that was the case for a long time. You go back 40 years, 50 years, not everyone could be an entrepreneur. That is different. And I'm not saying that everyone that has a great hobby should commercialize that hobby. Some hobbies should stay hobbies. But there are a ton of people who work at a job they despise. They go home at night, they go to their garage or their workshop or their kitchen table, and they tinker on cool stuff, but they don't share that with the world. If they did that, consumers would get really better stuff that they can purchase and they can use. But those particular people behind those businesses can find their life's work. And this concept of life's work is not something that my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents even had in their lexicon. But I think the idea of finding your life's work, I think you have done that, Steve, and I hope that I've done that too. That is a life-changing moment.
There's going to be potentially millions of people listening to this now that resonate with what you're saying. They are in situations that are not serving them on some kind of psychological fulfillment level. Why aren't those people, in your view, pursuing what their life work is? I'm trying to create some nuance, or trying to step into their mindset so that they feel understood. What is the gap, the Grand Canyon that they need to cross in their mind to get to that other side, which is their life's work? Why don't people do it?
I think a big part of it is perception. I think a lot of people perceive entrepreneurship as something that's out of reach for usually one of two reasons. The first reason is financial. They have a family member or a friend, or they've heard an anecdote of someone who started a business that was not successful, and ultimately it cost them their entire life. They couldn't, they lost their house. They couldn't put food on their table. And so there's a perception that entrepreneurship is very expensive. If you don't have money, you cannot start. And actually, I would say that for the vast majority of the time that entrepreneurship or business has been available in the world, which is, entrepreneurship or business is about as old as currency. So thousands and thousands of years. The main ingredient in starting a business was capital. And if you didn't have capital, you couldn't start. And I think that's changed. And we can get back to that in a second. The second part is the understanding or the experience or the know-how to begin. And I think that also has changed. I think now you don't have to go to business school. You don't have to, have grown up in a home with entrepreneurs to start a business. I think that anyone can start. And so on both those things, I think the cost of failure is as close to zero as it's ever been right now, like as we sit here. And the second part is, I think that if you try something and it doesn't work, you can try it again. And that may be, your Gymshark, your Aloe Yoga, your James Purse.
From a psychological perspective, some people, they often say, well, it requires a lot of self-belief. They talk about self-belief and confidence as being this kind of macro force that drives people to start. And I was sat here the other day with an entrepreneur who's built multiple companies and been very, very successful. And he was saying to me, he said something to me like, it's actually the pain of his current situation, which drove him to take the leap. As it relates to people's like psychology and their self-belief and their self-confidence, when you're trying to get people to become entrepreneurs, what can we do there to get them to take the leap? Is there anything that can be done?
I mean, first of all, I think that there's two types of catalysts for starting a business. One is passion and the other is disparity or being desperate. And actually, I think entrepreneurs by necessity are a big part of the greatest companies ever been created. The reason I became an entrepreneur, I mean, I toyed with it as a kid, but when I really became an entrepreneur, it was because I had no choice. I think that's a very powerful driver. It wasn't about my self-confidence or my swagger, whether or not I thought I could. I had no choice. In terms of, you had Richard Branson on. He has this famous line, screw it, just do it. I think that plays in sort of the passion side of things, not necessarily in the disparity kind of things. I didn't say screw it, just do it. I was like, I have no choice. What am I gonna do right now? Either have to move back home to South Florida and live at home with my mom and sisters, dad wasn't around, or I can actually figure this out on my own and I can pay for school and I can help support my family. And so it wasn't about screw it, just do it. It wasn't about self-confidence. It was, here's a way for me to actually survive. And I think that matters.
The role of passion in entrepreneurship, you'll know that a lot of entrepreneurs, they are so in love with the idea of being rich and successful that they'll kind of try and reverse engineer a passion into their journey of being rich and successful. So they'll sit down and say, what do I think is going to make me rich and successful? This happens all the time. Entrepreneurs will come up to me and say, I've got 3 ideas. And they'll name 3 random things. I'm going to start a hair care business. I might do a coffee company, or I might do crypto, for example. And you look at that and go well, it's going to get so difficult for you in year 1. You're going to quit all of these things. What role do you think passion plays in eventual success?
I think you have to actually like the thing you're doing to do it over a long period of time. My first, when I was 13 years old, I grew up in Montreal. I'm Jewish. I went to a lot of bar and bat mitzvahs. That thing you do when, 13-year-old kids, 12 years old if you're a girl, 13 years old if you're a boy, you go to these bar mitzvah parties. And I remember seeing the DJs at these parties on stage playing, cheesy music, very cheesy music. But I was just enthralled with them. I thought they were the coolest people in the world because in a matter of minutes, they would take a group of 300 sleepy people eating rubber chicken dinner. And a couple minutes later, they'd be doing the conga line. And it looked like magic to me. And I really thought that'd be super cool for me to partake in. And so there was a passion for me I want to be a DJ. It turned out nobody would hire me because I wasn't really a DJ. I didn't know how to DJ. And I looked like I was 8 years old. I mean, I've always been a little bit short. I'm still short, but I was really short when I was 13. And so there was no way anyone would hire me. And I decided I'd just start my own DJ company and hire myself. So there's some passion to it. When I was 17 years old and we moved to South Florida when I was around that time, moved back to Montreal when I was 17 to go to McGill University. My dad was no longer around. We can get into that if you want to. But at that point, it wasn't like I'm gonna go back to DJing. It was, okay, things are really bad right now. Dad's not around. I have 2 much younger sisters. Mom needs help. What am I gonna do? And I started selling t-shirts to universities across Canada. I had very little passion towards t-shirts. I like wearing t-shirts, as we talked about earlier. I like black t-shirts are something that I like, but I was not a passionate t-shirt entrepreneur manufacturer. I was passionate about survival. I was passionate about supporting my mom and my sisters. And so I don't think that t-shirt business was going to be something that I was going to be doing the rest of my life. That was not my life's work. Fast forward till today, leading Shopify with our team, I'm very passionate about Shopify's mission. This idea that more people can be entrepreneurs because of the work we do at Shopify. I can do this the rest of my life if the board will have me. So I think there's a time and a place for passion in these things, but I don't think it's the only reason to start.
You referenced a few things there that I thought were quite interesting, and that made my mind wander onto adjacent subject matter. One of those is that you're talking there about what's driving us at different moments in our life. One of the conversations I had on this podcast with Barbara Cochran, the shark over here in the US, she said to me that her best investments she makes in entrepreneurs, they tend to have some kind of underlying trauma. And that ends up being fuel in their engine. So when things get really, really hard, they're driven in such an obsessive way. And I remember then listening, and I've always thought that insecurity and shame and these kinds of things are unbelievably unappreciated drivers in people, for better or for worse. It comes with a downside. Do you think entrepreneurs and founders should go to therapy?
I think some should. I think entrepreneurs and founders need to be self-aware. I think that's the first thing. Once they're self-aware and they understand, hey, there are some things that are going on in my mind, in my personality, in my whatever, my being, I don't know how to describe it, that I need to work on, I think therapy is a hack to get there faster. You can do it on your own, and some people do. Some people do it through books, and they do it through meditation, and they go do, ayahuasca in a desert somewhere. But I think if you have the means to go to therapy, how could you not? There's someone whose job it is to make you better. Now, I think a lot of people make a mistake where they go to see one therapist and they're like, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And they're like, therapy doesn't work. No, that therapist didn't work. If you date somebody and the relationship doesn't work, doesn't mean you're never going to date again. It means that was the wrong person for you. And so one thing I think about is whether it's coaching or it's mentors or it's something like a therapist or a psychologist in your life or a psychiatrist, you need to find the right fit. But if you have the means to do so, it's the greatest hack ever to just know more, to realize more. Is it going to be painful? Unequivocally. The joke that I have with my therapist is I know it's been a good session if I feel worse after than when I did coming in. Because sometimes I come into these sessions and I got swagger and I just had a great day and things are going my way. Then an hour later, I leave and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still such a work in progress. But that's, I think, what we're all choosing here. There's this my favorite poem or speech ever is this Teddy Roosevelt speech, The Man in the Arena. Did you know it?
No.
I'm going to butcher it, but it's effectively like, it is not the critic that counts, but the man or the woman or the human in the arena that matters. And the reason I love that speech so much is because if you don't want any of this stuff, you can be a critic, you can be a spectator. But if you're an entrepreneur or you're a doer or a builder or someone that deeply wants to do cool shit and build something for yourself, for your family, for the world, you got to be in the arena. And in the arena, there's a lot of fighting and it's tough, but I think it's a better way to live. That's the reason why the best articulation of all this is this term entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurship is fundamentally, you have a problem and you are solving in a way that uses the least amount of resources, but has the highest amount of output. And that's the reason why I love entrepreneurship. We have millions of stores on Shopify. Some of them started because they were passionate about commercializing their craft. In some cases, they started because they had no choice. But the end result is they built something that is of value and they've shared it with everybody else. And so that's what I've signed up for. But if I'm going to check that box, this is the life I'm going to be the man in the arena, I need to acknowledge there's going to be critics who are going to try to tear me down. There's going to be internal critics that are going to try to mess that up. And I'm still going to pursue. I'm still going to move forward and progress. And I think therapy helps with that.